There was a glimmer of hope on Monday, but early Tuesday, Trey Hendrickson made his holdout clear, and the Bengals are going to have to get there on guarantees. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jake Liscow. He's James Rapien, and we've been hosting Locked On Bengals collectively since 2016. So if you're looking for a place for daily news, daily analysis on your Cincinnati Bengals, you are in the right place here on Locked On Bengals. You can hit that subscribe button on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast to join the many everyday listeners out there already. And if you're an everydayer, we appreciate those great listening habits, even more so if you're one of those out there that makes Locked On Bengals your first listen. Today, we dive back into the Trey Hendrickson situation that is now officially on its way to being a holdout, as Trey Hendrickson is no longer present in the state of Ohio. We'll then catch up on everything we didn't get to from Mock Turtle Soup as training camp begins tomorrow. What's going on with Dax Hill, with BJ Hill? What's going on with the offensive guard position? Who's competing there? And some roster moves to catch up on, James, that we didn't have enough time to get to in great depth on Monday. Today's episode is brought to the people by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We unfortunately don't have any discount codes to give the Bengals when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, James, as he has left the state after Mike Brown expressed some optimism and shared his opinion that he thought it would get done, that he wanted to get it done, that he thought Trey wanted to get it done. It did not happen, unfortunately, between the last time we recorded and now as we talk in the early afternoon on Tuesday.
Holdout. Officially a holdout. Not going to be present tomorrow. For their first practice on Wednesday of camp. It's expected. It's what it is. It's expected. I don't think anyone should overreact. Naturally, on social media, people are overreacting, and that's fine. It didn't feel like it was imminent. I think Mike Brown gave us his thoughts, but I never felt like during that, even if you felt optimistic, and I think we both did, that things were close, like really close. At least I didn't think it was really close and about to get done. And I would have been surprised and I will be surprised if we see Trey until the deal is done. And I think that this is what he's saying. That's why he posted the Instagram story, tagged Florida with the sunrise on Tuesday. Lets everyone know, hey, I'm in Florida.
What a funny thing to tag in an Instagram post, by the way. Florida.
Well, it's just he didn't want people to know where he lives, right? What city? Fun.
Florida.
No doubt. Yeah. Welcome to Florida, where the Bengals apparently have training camp. No. Or Texas for Shamar. Oh, no, wait. I think this is one of those things that, and you asked this yesterday, like, will Trey respond? And Trey responded. All the reporting around it, I think it's very clear. Trey has made his stance on what he wants, what he's looking for. And it's clear that the guaranteed dollars aren't there. I'm not sure that they're there anywhere when it comes to an extension right now, in the Bengals and Trey. I'm not sure they've agreed to average annual value. I don't necessarily think that the years part is going to be a huge hurdle, but it is a hurdle, especially when you're talking about guaranteed money being the biggest hurdle. And everyone has reported that. Not shocked given the Bengals' history, but this is where they are. And so I'm not going to fret as we record this on July 22nd about Trey not being there for day one of training camp on Wednesday, because he's not going to be there, barring something really unforeseen. I don't really think that's a big deal. I do know, and I can back this up, Trey does want to get a deal done. Absolutely. So Mike Brown is right there. Mike clearly wants to get a deal done. He said it to everybody. And so it's going to be about these two sides bending some. When will that happen is my question. I don't care that Trey's not in camp in the third week of July, essentially, in the first week of camp, but I do want him there a month from now. I do think it's going to start to matter as we get closer toward the games mattering. And so that would be my my focus. If I'm the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson, he's got to stay ready. I have no doubt that he will. And the Bengals, they have to figure out the way to find common ground here, because I do think that it's more on their end of not being willing to give the guarantees that Trey's looking for.
And I'm sure Trey will hit the ground running. I'm with you there. But I do think that while it's not necessarily a change, like this is kind of expected and it's not something to panic over, it's still far from ideal, right? Like we're not saying that it's good. We're not saying that everything is fine when we say it's not something to panic over, because ideally when you have a new defensive coordinator and you're doing things a little bit differently, you have everyone there so everyone's on the same page. And so the coordinators and the coaches can figure out, okay, we have Trey Hendrickson. This is how things look with Trey. This is how we can mold things around Trey, with having seen him go through the things on the field, instead of just speculating on how he's going to fit based on what he put on tape last year, based on what you think Trey Hendrickson is, and probably reasonably can expect Trey Hendrickson to be. But that also goes for Shamar Stewart. That's why it's important to have everyone as present as they can be. More important for Shamar, for reasons that we've discussed. We don't need to go into those today. But while it's not necessarily a shock that it's gotten to this point, it's not a good place to be. It's very far from ideal, obviously, and it's not where you want to be. To have him not there physically is one thing. To have the distraction is another issue with this. To have this, what, sixth straight year, it feels like, I don't know, infinite straight year of something that you're dealing with in training camp from a contract perspective for an important player, not something that you want to deal with, is exhausting for fans. I can tell you that for sure, based on the response that we saw on Tuesday. And it's not surprising that that's a response. They've been dealing with this stuff for years. And the concern then becomes, well, if the issue is guaranteed money, let's say they did get there on APY in years, and there's not a great reason to think they did. It sounds like they moved on APY in years. Sounds like the money did go up. The years may have gone up. If the issue is guarantees and they were dealing, okay, well, the years did go up, because if the issue is guarantees now, primarily, that's what's been reported on Tuesday. And previously, they were offering 1-year deals, which was reported, I think, on Sunday. Well, if you're talking about guarantees past year one, you're probably talking about a multi-year deal at that point. So it sounds like they moved on years. If the issue is guarantees primarily, it sounds like they moved on money too. But the concern then is they never budged on guarantees for Jesse Bates. And at the time, we were thinking about the Mulligetta thing. We're thinking about, this is a precedent breaker for the Bengals. But now the Bengals have broken that precedent on non-quarterback contracts. And they did so not just for Jamar Chase, but also for T. Higgins. And from Trey's perspective, and I don't say any of this to rag on T, from Trey's perspective, they gave year 2 guaranteed money to T. Higgins after T. Higgins has been injured, much more than Trey Hendrickson has been injured in terms of missing games, right? Trey's perspective is he was just second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, has all the sack numbers to back it up. And if T can get that, well, shouldn't I get that if I'm Trey Hendrickson? I imagine that's part of the thinking there, in addition to the consistent frustration we've heard from him over the years around not having guarantees. It's left him in limbo. And that's why, given their history, it's not surprising that they're at this point. And I have concern that about how it plays out, given their history with guarantees outside of year one.
There's a lot there. I think, first of all, when it comes to the guarantee element, I know for a fact Trey's camp took notice of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, obviously, and we knew that was going to happen, but T. Higgins also getting guarantees. And Mike Brown hinted at that on Monday towards the end. It almost felt like a pie conversation. And it's the video I posted on YouTube. And right before he felt like he was going to the pie discussion, he's like, well, you give out this much, and then other people want the same amount, the same thing, and kind of hinted at the style of it and not necessarily just the salary. And that's it. That's probably what he's referring to, is the guaranteed element of it. And the problem with the Bengals, in my biggest issue with the Trey Hendrickson situation, is really surface level. And it's something that I'm going to share coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch Money is going to help you manage your money, and it's going to make it easy because with Monarch Money, it can feel so much easier whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, or just trying to be better with your money. Monarch Money is going to put you in the driver's seat, and it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, all of your spending in one place. So you're not just managing your money, you're building wealth. And the key, and I think it's such a huge key, before Monarch Money, I had like 7 different apps because you have the bank account app, and then you have this app, and then you have that. It can merge them all together. It's convenient for you and your partner to manage today. And it's getting to be busy season for me. Maybe it's busy season for you. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
This episode of Locked On Bengals is sponsored by Rugiet. You've probably heard of Viagra. You've heard of Cialis at this point. Maybe you've even tried them, but you're looking for something beyond the usual pill. Well, now it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, its 3-to-1 formula in Rugiet dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average on 15 minutes, and can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. And if those traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have made the switch, with board-certified doctors helping along the way, and discreet shipment to your door. Head to Rugiet.com/lockedon and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com/lockedonnfl, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website to view full safety information.
My biggest issue with this entire situation, Jake, is not that he's not going to be at camp for the first few days. I don't really care. But if they had made their offer, whatever it is, and I don't know what it is, but whatever they offered this week, that multi-year deal with whatever is guaranteed, if they made that in January, let's say a week after the season ended, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It'd be done. I promise you he would have agreed to it. I promise you. The market moved, everything changed, everything switched. And that's why we're having all this conversation. Like, I think it would have gotten done. I think they could have gotten him for 28 to 30 million average annual salary. The guarantees they're offering now, I'm sure probably get it done. And I don't know what that number is, but the market moved. And then they broke their precedent because at that point, only Joe Burrow had gotten guarantees and multi-year deal. And they did that to keep T and keep Jamar, obviously. And so then Trey's like, all right, well, I'm definitely in that mix. And look at all these defensive ends. Like, it just gave him all of these points to put against them. And if they knew deep down that they wanted to keep Trey, and I do think that was their plan for the majority of the offseason, even with the little trade flirtation that I don't think was that real, then why not just do it? Put your best foot forward then, because then it's done and then no one's having this conversation. So that's my issue. It's not now and that their stance is what it is, because now you're in a real negotiation that's going to have to be tough, and they're going to be looking at it a certain way, and Trey's going to be looking at it a certain way. But it could have just been done in January. Like, literally when Joe Burrow was sitting on the couch watching their season end during quarterback, you could have called Trey as he was going through his day after rehab following that win over the Steelers, and being like, hey, let's work on this and let's get this done now. And I wish they would have done that.
I don't know that I agree that it would have been necessarily done right away, but I think that it probably would be done by now. And the reason is that they could have actually negotiated the whole time. It doesn't feel like there's been movement in these negotiations until now. And that's what's frustrating about it to me is one, there's a late mover issue. I agree with you on the overall point you're making there. Like, by waiting, they cost themselves money. They consistently do this. They've been right in the past when they've waited or let guys go that have earned more elsewhere, and they have a history of being right, but they also have a history of missing on guys that are clearly high-performing players in recent history as well. And I mentioned Jesse Bates earlier as a prominent example there. The Bengals aren't the only team in the NFL that has these issues. They're really not. They're not unique in that sense, but they are unique in the sense that it's pulling teeth for years now. And I don't like that I've had to say that so many times throughout this offseason. But if there was an in earnest negotiation from the time they were negotiating, maybe it's not January, right? Because nothing really happens in contract negotiations in January in the NFL. Maybe it's not until March. Maybe it's not until, free agencies.
Why?
Well, it's just the norms of the NFL. Yes, the Bengals could be the one team to do it, but let's
Or
put
the one
aside,
team not giving guarantees to a star pass rusher after the first year.
no doubt, but let's put aside that bit of criticism because no one in the NFL does it. But if you start these negotiations the same time you start the negotiations for Jamar and T, and you're working all of them, and you've been negotiating the whole time, wouldn't it be done by now? But instead, it seems like we've had all this conversation around the lack of communication, the lack of movement in their offer, the lack of earnest negotiations, and then you get to this point where now finally it feels like a normal holdout to me. Now it finally feels like, okay, they've had it, they've discussed things, it's moved a little bit. Now there's some back and forth happening. Now it feels like a normal holdout. Maybe it's been a normal holdout the whole time. It's just been really public, and because it's been public, it's been really nationally reported at a high level. But I tweeted on Tuesday morning my time that it reminds me of the Chris Jones holdout at this point. Similar ages, similar positions. The Chiefs have had issues with contracts, guys getting franchised, some guys getting traded in their recent history, some of their better players. So those things are reminiscent to me. But the frustrating thing that I agree with for you with what you said there, James, is just like, why did it take so long for this to move at all? And then
Especially
everything
because
else happened.
they did talk at the combine or around the combine. And I know they had some dialogue then, and there were some numbers exchanged then. But then the market shifted. They waited till the league started to work. And once that happens and Max gets his deal and then all these other guys get their deals and I don't need to go through. Well, like it changes and everything feels different and it just makes it that much harder. And I think that's what led to the lull that you're talking about. That is annoying and is frustrating because now it's like, all right, well, bleep is hitting the fan and it's time to get it done. And there's clearly a gap there. And hopefully they can figure it out and figure it out soon-ish. Like probably, I don't expect to see Trey Hendrickson when you're in town, Jake. Spoiler, Jake's going to be in town for the early part of training camp. But like a month from now, I really need to see Trey. Like I don't care about preseason Trey, like in fast start, that doesn't matter. But I do want him to have a few weeks under his new contract to mentally and physically just be able to do his thing before that September 7th debut. I don't want him to just sign a deal and then hop on the plane to Cleveland.
So ideally, you're avoiding a Chris Jones situation. Chris Jones infamously watching the Chiefs season opener in 2023 from the suite and then signing and playing the next week.
Jesse Bates did that during a preseason game, didn't he? His suite, he came up.
Preseason game, a little bit different. First preseason game is quite a ways away from week one of the regular season.
No doubt, but like that was awkward. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine a regular season game? I remember thinking like I need to try to get to talk to Jesse somehow, and obviously I didn't even leave the press box. But if Trey's there in the regular season watching, I'm definitely trying to talk to him. Sweet talk the security guards. What do you think?
Well, let's avoid it getting to that.
Well, let's avoid it. I agree.
Possible.
Yeah. Get it done.
I just don't have much faith that it is resolved soon. I think that this is something that will be like we've seen in recent years. It's going to go up to the regular season. I mean, that's their history, right? And at this point, why would we believe that they're doing anything different from their history with Trey from the way it's gone so far? It's very in line with the way the Bengals standardly operate.
And there's going to be a lot of fast start talk.
Mm-hmm.
Really hard to start fast when you have this distraction hovering over your entire training camp and preseason. If that's what ends up happening. Really hard. Like that matters because at worst, he's your fourth best player. I think he's their third best player. And so to not have him all camp and have this hovering, it can't happen, and yet you're right, it's entirely possible, because I thought a couple of years ago that there's no way Joe doesn't get done before week 1, and he literally signed his paper and got on the flight to Cleveland. That's still stuck with me. I hate it.
Yep.
Anyways, there are plenty of other things we need to get to, including some health updates and some roster moves. There's a new defensive tackle in stripes that could matter. We'll get to that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. I love fantasy football. It is a huge part of a football season for me, and I'm excited that it's back. And if you are one of the millions like me that have been using Yahoo Fantasy, well, congrats. And if you haven't, well, me and Jake are going to be on Yahoo Fantasy this year and be playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And I'm at that point, Jake. I've probably had there have been some years I've had double-digit fantasy leagues. I've narrowed that down a little bit. Don't have as much time these days, but still a bunch of fantasy leagues. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins on August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a fantasy football league at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet.
A lot of discussion when you listen to Al Golden on Monday about the fast start mentality, that doesn't just apply to the regular season, that applies to practices. Are we easing into drills? Are we easing into things at training camp? Are we easing into preseason games? Are we easing into the first day back after a day off during training camp? Versus, are we hitting the ground running? Are we hitting the ground at a jog? Or are we hitting the ground running? A lot of talk around fast starts and that cultural importance, the way they go about doing their business, not just when the regular season arrives, but starting on Wednesday. Also, a lot of talk about identifying emerging leaders on defense and the need for multiple leaders in each room on defense. And this, of course, all ties back to Trey Hendrickson's absence. You talk about a distraction. You talk about the absence of one of the best players, if not the best player, almost certainly the best player on your defense. I just say that with a grain of uncertainty, because you never know what the season will bring. But your best player last year in Trey Hendrickson on the defense, certainly a respected player on that side of the ball, goes back to what we've talked about, where we have mentioned players see the way these negotiations go with your best players, all of those impacts. But the one bit of good news here is that BJ Hill and Dax Hill, if you listened all the way to the end of our most recent episode, you're up on things. You heard us say the Hills are healthy. The Hills are not on the list. BJ Hill, Dax Hill will be eased into training camp as they're working their way back from injury. You can't start fast, I guess, when it comes to coming off injury. You got to get to the point where you can play fast and make sure that you're doing all the load management things they're doing there. But that bit of good news and the addition of Taven Bryan to add out to some depth of that defensive tackle room. Al Golden saying they're going to keep adding to these spots until they feel like they have what they need. And now he's more satisfied with the defensive tackle depth. When everyone's there, he said he likes their defensive end depth, likes the linebackers they've added, called Oren Burks one of the most underheralded moves of the offseason. We'll see what that means. Really likes his secondary depth. So what are your thoughts there, James, as we've got some healthy Hills? That's great news that the Taven Bryan move didn't indicate BJ Hill wasn't going to be ready to start. Dax Hill ready to start at the beginning of training camp, as they need to find that continuity and figure out where every piece is fitting together in that secondary.
I think that's it right there. Is one, just health in general. Two, I think they're going to bring both of those guys along slowly. I'm not expecting them to, like, they start Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 straight practices. Don't be shocked if you don't see the Hills. Maybe 2 out of the 3. It may be the workouts on all 3 days, but actually doing stuff with the team. Maybe they only go through individuals one of those days, and then one of the days is a rest day, and that wouldn't shock me at all. But I think overall, I've liked everything that Al has been about, and something that really, I'm trying to think, I might have said it on yesterday's pod, but that stuck with me. Logan Wilson over the weekend at Jungle Jam said it was something they needed. It was a change they needed, and I think it's been very cut and dry what he wants. It's very black and white. This is it. And when you have talented guys that clearly look lost at times last year, I think that's the way to go about it. That's the right approach and message. And I just think that's Al's approach. And so, one, from a health standpoint, you're going to need BJ. Dax Hill, you really need him to pop this year. You need him to be part of your long-term future by showing that he's a star now. And so the path to that probably starts with a healthy camp, even if he is limited at times. So really good news there. Overall, though, I just wonder how it's going to come together and can it? And I think I come back to that because I like what Al's saying. I like a lot of the pieces, but the sum of the parts need to be greater than what we see on paper. And can that happen? We'll see. Does that mean Logan Wilson's got to be healthy? Yes. Does that mean one of these other linebackers has to step up? Yes. Does that mean the defensive line room needs to be much improved? Like, all these things need to happen, and maybe they do, but we need to see it first. And so I'm excited to watch the defense. Like, much, not that I'm not excited ever to watch it, but I'm really excited to watch it just to see how it comes together. Does it fit? Does it frustrate Joe early on? You hope so. You really need the defense to win early in camp. I feel like that's something you want to see. We'll see if that happens this week.
As long as it's not in the trenches again. I mean, we won't watch for that this week, but next week. Like, I'm sick
trenches,
of watching
yeah.
the trenches getting beat up. Like, let's see the linebackers and the corners make some plays and
Yeah.
let's see some of that, Let's see the pass protection hold up a little bit. They're not going to tackle, but, let's see that in the preseason. Let's see some good tackling in the preseason. The Bengals also did add Taven Bryan to their defensive tackle room. Taven Bryan, a longtime veteran at this point, drafted back in 2018 in the first round, at the end of the first round by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hasn't really lived up to that first round billing, but has been a rotational piece who's played a lot of NFL football, almost 3,000 snaps in his NFL career. He's going to be a 3-tech for the Bengals. I think he's making the roster. I think he's going to be a rotational piece. I think it'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out now with all the bodies they have at defensive end as well. But let's get to the guard conversation here as well, James. There was no move at guard. The most significant move they made was adding Taven Bryan. The rest could just be camp bodies in the end. But at guard, no move. A lot of people wanted to see that move as part of the flurry of moves the Bengals did make on Sunday. And not only no move, but in Dan Pitcher's conversation with you guys yesterday on Monday, it's very much what it appears. It's Dylan Fairchild in the driver's seat at left guard. It's probably Lucas Patrick in the driver's seat at right guard. And Matt Lee is going to keep playing center. Jalen Rivers is going to focus on tackle. And this is somewhere where, in my opinion, they should be throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, or they should be bringing in a proven veteran. They obviously don't feel like they have to do either of those things.
With Rivers, I think they just want him to get comfortable, and he wasn't necessarily comfortable during the offseason program, picking everything up. Hopefully he is by now. Had that guard flex at Miami in college, and I would love for them to give him a shot, at least on paper. That's not going to happen. For Lee, I was just curious because a lot of centers can play guard. And I was like, maybe they give him a look. And to Dan Pitcher's credit, he was very direct with me. Now, Matt Lee, view him as a center, obviously in a pinch. If you need him to play guard, they will. But I think they just view him as a center. And it's interesting because those are two guys where you're like, from a pass protecting standpoint in college, and then Matt Lee last year in the preseason, they showed something. Is it enough? I'm not sure, but they do feel like good fits. I also get trying Rivers at tackle. That's where he would be most valuable if he does end up being a valuable swing tackle, unless, and here's the big one, he can be your starting right guard. Clearly, they don't view him that way, which is really unfortunate. And at the same time, if they don't think he's ready for it, I get it. But it sucks because the moment he was drafted, I was like, man, that could be a sleeper right guard in starting for you. They signed Lucas Patrick. That wasn't necessarily an inspiring veteran signing. Clearly, they believe in him. But man, I wish one of these guys would be in the mix just in case, because you're really one injury away from Cody Ford or Cordell Volson. And that's assuming that Fairchild and Patrick are the answer at both guard spots.
Yeah, and the thing with Rivers on top of if it is a comfort level thing, it's like there's nobody else to be a swing tackle. The other options are thin. The depth
It's
they
Cody
have
Ford.
at tackle right now is pretty bad. Last year felt better about it because Trent Brown was around. He didn't make it very long into the season. That depth was very quickly tested. But this is a league that will test your depth. And we're talking about all these depth spots on defense where they've built out some depth at a lot of positions, even if the top end isn't there. And on the offensive line, there's some guys that have been around that have played NFL football, but it's really hard to build depth at that position effectively in the NFL. Outside of that, Dan Pitcher's comments mostly I thought were pretty encouraging. Like the making people feel the continuity that they have aspect of things is something that I'm really interested to see how that plays out. The obvious skill player strength that they have, how they're catering to those skill positions, how good they feel about their depth at certain spots in terms of those skill players, especially the role for Taj Brooks as he's going to come along in the NFL. There's a lot to feel good about with this offense. So don't want it to be like a guard dooming segment, and that's the takeaway from Dan Pitcher. That's not it. It's just if there is a part where we're concerned on offense, that's obviously it right now, and we'll see how those battles shake out and how ready Dylan Fairchild and Lucas Patrick are for the starting jobs.
Yeah, the 2 weak links, I would say, our weakest positions would be guard and tight end. Those are 2 spots where one injury. Well, I'm talking about on offense. One injury, and you're like, obviously quarterback. The whole world revolves around Joe. But you get my point. And so we'll see. But the guard spot is something we're going to be paying attention to very, very closely. Doesn't mean the offense shouldn't be awesome. They expect to be really, really good in a bunch of areas and expect to be better in the areas that they were really, really good in last year. So we'll see if they can take that next step. They need to. And there's a lot of pressure on these coaches. That's the other thing as we wrap up. On Wednesday just watching and looking at these coaches. You have a new offensive line coach, new defensive coordinator, and really a whole new defensive staff outside of a few guys. It's going to be interesting to see how morning practice goes on Wednesday, Jake Liscow.
Yeah, the next episode you hear from us will be a practice recap as the Bengals are kicking off training camp on Wednesday. James is excited now for day one.
Yeah, baby.
But like how Golden says, on day 8, it gets harder. And on day 18, it gets even harder. But we will have you covered here for all of Bengals training camp as we are gearing up for football. Football's back. That means it's back. Training camp means you're not watching on TV, but it means football is back in a way that it hasn't been since last winter. And that's exciting stuff. Until next time, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.